This is Thierry Harris here. I'm the founder and chairman of AGAO, AGAU.io. One token backed by silver, AG, one token backed by gold, AU, the chemical elements. I am here to discuss the global currency wars, including private initiatives and public government-owned initiative. So let's start a little bit backwards from where we initiated all this. Bitcoin is a private initiative that actually responds to what the malpractices have been through central banks. And what I mean by that is there has been abuse over the terms of basically since 1971, when Nixon stopped the gold standard, and he basically announced that they were going to suspend the gold standard temporarily. But as you know, temporarily means forever sometimes, like they often do with taxes. So Bitcoin saw what happened on the global crisis in 2008-2009, where there was a lot of loss of confidence in institutions, be it central banks or government, which both of them have acted in a reckless behavior by actually not allowing a free market, but bailing out bad behavior. I want to talk about the different initiatives, the private initiatives and the public initiative. Bitcoin is a private initiative to respond to all of these problems that we have described before. I believe it was the free market that saw that there was a lot of loss of confidence in institutions, central banks and government, and tried to assess the problem of money. And I give a big props and shout out to whoever Satoshi Nakamoto is, because the most fundamental question in this system was, what is money? Now, AGAO believes that the real money has always been gold. Since 3,000 years BC, gold is anti-fragile, essentially meaning that the more you depart from it, the more you have reasons to come back to it. And also, the chemical element of AU is immutable through time. In other words, it was immutable before immutable was cool. Now, this is in contrast to fiat currencies, or what I call fiat crypto, meaning that it's not backed by anything on the first place, and then but trust and network, which is the same thing as a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is backed by network and trust. And the second thing is, when you want to establish an alternative to fiat, right, you should not be able to fork it. You cannot print gold, but you can fork Bitcoin and other fiat as many times as you want. That's the second problem. And the third problem is that you want to depart from something, in this case, the cryptocurrencies, that are do not pass the test of technology. In other words, they're not technologically resistant. The more Bitcoin is already technologically outdated, be it because of quantum computing can kill it in the long term, or because the network itself cannot switch, it's hard-coded. And today you have Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Diamond and God knows what, who is already more efficient. Now, that is the private initiative that would probably find a solution, and we believe at AGAO that we're getting close to there. Now, the public initiatives, right there is where it becomes interesting in terms of currency wars. What I mean by that is that on the one side of the Atlantic, you see basically the Americas. The Americas, I believe, are playing through two things, the Fed and the IMF. The IMF has SDRs, which is special drawing rights. This is a basket of currencies that the IMF produces, and we're going to go back to that after. On the other side of the Pacific, you see the Chinese renminbi. Now, the Chinese have completely banned all cryptocurrencies, but they have allowed the digital renminbi. And the digital renminbi, I call it, is a little bit like a Hotel California, meaning you can get in, but you cannot get out. And this is also the principle of what's happening in China in terms of capital inflows, but difficult to have capital outflows except from Hong Kong. And we've seen what is going on the long term for Hong Kong recently. So the Chinese renminbi is going to position itself and push for this digital renminbi, and is probably going to push it through the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. Now we're playing financial warfare here simulation. So the Chinese renminbi being pushed through all of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative is probably something that is going to happen. Although the problem here is that the people who participate in this Chinese Silk Road, they also have a lot of debt from the IMF through SDRs. Now, the IMF usually lends SDRs and gets paid back in gold. So I always say, do what they do, not what they say. Now, how would the US respond to a threat to the US dollar? Well, in my opinion, the best way they could align the other countries, such as the euro, the pound, and the Japanese yen, into this basket of currencies through the SDR, where the US dollar is still a big portion of the SDR, they could align all of these countries in order to issue a digital SDR. And that's where Facebook plays out. Because Facebook Libra is really nothing but a digital SDR. I believe that Facebook Libra is going to be approved by Congress because in the interest of the United States, if they were to fight the Chinese digital renminbi, they probably would do it through this digital SDR, being issued either by the IMF or through a private initiative like Facebook Libra. So if I was them, I would keep it in the pocket until I see this threat playing out. Why issue it if you don't need to use your weapons, right? So this is, in my view, the global picture. Now, how will that play out? I believe that most likely there's going to be two massive blocks on the government side and on the public side. The digital renminbi versus the digital SDR, be it through the IMF, through the Bank for International Settlements, or through Facebook Libra. Now, I spoke to the head of the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, Agustin Karsten, who happens to be a Mexican as well. At first, he was very reluctant and not pro-crypto. I mean, he's been a huge critic of Bitcoins for the right reasons, I believe. But it seems that now the optics are changing and that it becomes more and more something that is feasible or at least possible in the future. Of course, today the technology is not perfect, but it clearly seems like the free market and the improvement of technology will allow us one day to get there. So where are we as far as Agao is concerned? Well, we are in Switzerland and we are private money, essentially in the spirit of Hayek. Hayek believed in privately issued money, and this is something that you can do in Switzerland. Now, if you issue private money, you're essentially competing with all of the other monies, and essentially your reputation is at stake. Today, the yen is competing with the renminbi, with the pound, with the euros, with the dollars, and we're just another one of those. We believe gold is a superior form of money. Actually, gold is money, and everything else is fiat because it's backed by trust. So that is where we are positioned. We are positioned ourselves with the complete transparency and by linking the direct ownership of allocated gold in Switzerland, which means that your token is the direct property of the gold. The gold is yours as opposed to having an IOU by a central bank that would eventually default or issue an executive order. In Switzerland, we have the fundamental backdrop of the constitution that guarantees private property, and that is why we are based here, and we hope to give you more announcements in the future. In any event, we are all for free competition of money because we believe that is a healthy thing, be it private, be it public, and let the best win.